Still waiting to load up. Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm waiting for my feed to propagate, is what it says. And so, oh, it says that I'm live. All right. Well, good evening. Good to be with you. And let's just see where my screen just went. Well, that's not it. I hope you can see me. Go ahead and send me a chat if you can see me in the Facebook live stream. And I'm going to see if I can open up a new window here and get to seeing all of you. All right. Looks like we're streaming. And hi, everybody. This is Pastor Joel. And we're going to have a conversation tonight about, with my friend Paul Davis. But go ahead and send a quick comment. Let me know that you're there and that you can see me. And I'm looking for those comments right now. Oh, there it is, Carol and Judy. Good to see you. I got to remember to look up at the camera. Well, and laughing in the background there.
Yes.
This you are about to meet my good friend Paul Davis. There he is, and
Hello,
hi,
all.
Paul.
Hi, Joel.
And I can tell that we have Carol and Judy are on and watching, and I think we're gonna have a few more coming on. And so say hi, Irene. Good to have you tonight. So this is our weekly web series called Together in Faith at Eastside Lutheran Church. My name is Joel, pastor here at Eastside, and we have together in faith with us today Paul Davis. And Paul Davis is, boy, Paul, we've known each other now for 10 years, right?
Yes.
Right.
That's a long time.
Yeah,
Yes.
I know, right? Yeah. So, Paul, who are you?
I am the director of faith formation, and I serve at Paulsbo First Lutheran in Paulsbo, Washington, which is west of Seattle. You had to take a ferry and a bridge, and so we're over here. And it's a nice little. It's sometimes people call it Little Norway because it was founded by some Norwegians. Well, actually, it wasn't founded. It was founded by the Suquamish tribe, but
Right.
then they came and cut down all the trees and built some houses, and because it looks a lot like Norway.
Yeah, you're on the Olympic Peninsula, right?
We're actually on the Kitsap Peninsula.
The Kitsap Peninsula. Okay.
Right. You got to take another bridge to get to the Olympic Peninsula.
Right.
But it's you go down the bay that we're in. It looks like a fjord because
Right.
it's just a bunch of trees. And I've been to Norway, and I took this boat, and it's like, this looks like Paulsbo. This is why they stopped here, because it looks like home to them. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I love those kinds of stories. When I was a kid growing up in northern Wisconsin, um, the some people maybe had not ever heard of the Hmong people, maybe even until this Olympics when Suni
right.
won the gold medal in gymnastics, and she is a person of Hmong descent, and so the Hmong people moved in largely because of they were being brought in by immigration services because they supported us in various wars over in Asia and were a persecuted people. And so Lutheran Social Services brought them into the upper Midwest. And they started moving into northern Wisconsin right around the time when I was in high school and college, because that reminded them of where they were from, the hill country in their part of the world. And and cornfields started turning into ginseng fields. And it's really, yeah, no, it's really cool. It's a cool story. So it's interesting, right? There, you know, a couple generations earlier, that the Norwegians moved there to the Kitsap Peninsula and founded Paulsbo First Lutheran Church in Paulsbo, Washington. So all y'all from East Side are going to have to go check out Paulsbo, Washington, and it's spelled differently. I know there's some thing going on there with the spelling, right? So
Right. Well, because Paulsbo means Paul's place, so the correct spelling is Paulsbo, and that's what it was called. But until one day the postmaster made a typo and changed the A to an O, and so forever it stands. It is now Paulsbo. Um,
so
Still means Paul's place. So when I tell people I'm Paul from Paulsbo, it it takes a while, but sometimes I get it. But it's a perfect place for me to be. So
yeah, good. Well, we have. I just want to say hi to some other folks here who are saying hi online. So, Colin and Harriet Barrett, good to see you tonight, and Colleen and Connie, good to be with you tonight. So, well, so excellent, and we're also streaming live to YouTube. So for those of you who want to share this on YouTube, if you have a friend out there who doesn't have a Facebook account, you can find it on the East Side Lutheran YouTube page as well. So you know, we met 10 years ago in Germany,
yes,
and for folks who have been coming and watching online this Together in Faith, it was really through our mutual friend Michael Bridges, who has also been on this uh, uh,
yeah.
Facebook Live show, and we talked about that Germany trip, and I even shared some photos of Germany when Michael was on. But that was really kind of Lutherans from all over the globe gathering to go experience this trip that Michael had planned. Michael and George and Christian had planned this thing called the Luther 500. And so that's how I met Paul and Cheryl and a number of people from the Paulsville First Lutheran community. And since then have been out to your church a number of times. I don't remember
Hmm.
now, 3 or 4 times maybe.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah,
I
right.
did. I did find that picture that you and I were looking for, and I did send it to your Facebook Messenger. So if
Oh.
you are technically savvy enough, you can find it and share it with people. But
It might be after the stream. Right, right.
right,
It's so funny when I do this. I'm using my camera phone on a gimbal. I have the
right,
iPad open and I have the laptop open.
right.
And actually, I probably have one too few screens to
Yeah,
make.
it's our life these days because we
I
do
know.
life on screen now. It's
I
just
know.
what
So, okay, remind me, give me your title again at Paulsville First.
director of faith formation.
Yeah. Okay. Super cool title. Now let me ask that Lutheran question. What does this mean?
Right. So what does this mean? It's a job that was it's basically I mean that's a job title that a lot of people have, and
Right.
it's sometimes it's the new title for a youth director.
Hmm.
Um, but the job description was written out of youth ministry, but for youth and family ministry, and so the things that you would think of a youth group that does, we don't. Um, we tend not to do age segregated, age siloed ministries. We do
Right.
congregational ministries.
Right.
So a mission trip that a lot of churches do, they take a bunch of kids, load them in a van, and take them somewhere. I will take a bunch of people and take them somewhere. Um, so we did one mission trip we did, and we've gotten away from mission trip as well. We call them servant trips, service
Yeah.
trips. And one we did down to Chehalis, which is a community an hour or two south of here, and it flooded one year. And so we loaded up vans and motorhomes and trailers, and we went down there. And our age range was 4 to 94.
Wow.
And we spent a week down there cleaning up after a flood. And we actually
Wow.
did that 4 times because it was a big flood. And
Yeah.
and people had such a great time. One year, some kid says, "Well, when's Chehalis going to flood again so we can go back?" It's like, we don't pray for natural disasters so we can go help people. We'll find a different way to help them. We don't need for
Yeah.
them to be covered in mud to go help. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So my congregation here at Eastside, we're just kind of dipping our toe into these models that you're talking about. We had one family come out to family camp for the first time, I think, in a long time, maybe ever, and had this really great three generations together
mhm.
doing family camp together. And I think like it's a really powerful way to just do community. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So how did you kind of get it? You have this background in youth ministry, and you value that. And how is it that you saw the need? Was this a specific thing in Paulsboro? You saw something in your congregation that said, "Oh, this is for my locale is going to need this." Yeah.
No, actually, the job description was written by the pastors before I got here. I had worked in two other churches as the youth director. And the first one was I was pretty much hired to play with the kids.
Sure.
When I figured that out, I said, no, I need to do more than play with kids. I
Right.
don't,
Right.
not that I have something against playing with kids, but I need to do more than that.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Uh, Went to another church where I got to do more than that. That ended as well. And then I kind of took a sabbatical for a while.
Okay.
Took some time off to figure out, okay, what does ministry look like for me? What should it look like in the church?
Hmm.
And then I got a call from Paulsbo, and they said, "We're here that you like doing this stuff, and we would like to talk to you." And they sent me the job description, and that brought life back into me. That's like, yes, this job description brought me life. It excited me for what they were doing, what they wanted to do. And so 15 years later, I'm still here.
Wow. Okay. So this is 15 years as
Yeah.
director of faith formation, Paulsville
Yep.
First Lutheran Church. That's
Yep.
great, man. Wow. Well, and a couple of years ago, you had a sabbatical, and you
Hmm.
drove across the country, you and your wife Cheryl, and stopped in and saw us in Minneapolis. And
Yep.
yeah. All right. So
Yeah. We made it all the way out to, yeah, we drove to Cleveland and back
from
because we
Seattle to
wanted
Cleveland.
to see George, who was
Yeah.
also one of the founders of Luther 500.
Yep.
And it was really all about talking to all these different peoples about how do we connect, how do we stay connected, how do we do faith formation,
Yeah.
and how do we work together to do that.
All right, so now I'm really going to put you on the spot. First, I'm going to say hi to the Fall Shows, to Bob. Good to see you, Bob. Bob, again, great song this past Sunday. Loved the harmonica and the nine-string acoustic guitar.
Oh yes,
And
I did see that, by the way. That was awesome.
oh, so you
That
were
was right
watching?
before this. That was right before the gospel reading in the sermon, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, thumbs
yeah.
up.
Oh, wasn't that great?
It was.
I love. I know Bob did such a good job. Yeah. So if I'm gonna fanboy on you, Bob, just a little bit right now. So Bob was in a band. If I get this wrong, Bob, tell me. Put it in the chat. Bob was in a band called the Castaways out of Minnesota, and they had a hit in the '60s called "Liar Liar." So you can look up the Castaways "Liar Liar." That's Bob's band. And it's great, man. And so Bob still does music, and he's so generous to share it with us at church. And I just loved, man, that was such a great. I loved it. So I uh, Paul, you saw the recording of the first service, and in the second service, I edited up my sermon just a little bit so that I could incorporate that song that Bob shared. Everything's beautiful, in its own way, tune, which is, I think that's a Dolly Parton tune. Um, but it's I think I have that right. But again, Bob can tell me differently. So Bob is online as well as Marlis Atwood. Good to see you here, Marlis, as well. So all right, so um, I
So I
wanted
must
to
confess,
ask.
I did not watch the entire service.
All good.
Um, I got part of it before our video stream started because we're still only online, and so in the morning
Right.
before our service starts, I can watch and participate in my other friends' worship services. So it's been a real treat to be able to listen to you preach. So
Oh, well, thank you.
someday I'll
Well,
get to listen to you preach in person.
yeah. Well, I hope so. You mentioned something before we got online with everyone else that your children's message at Paulsville
Mhm.
First had some similar kind of takes, and I'm kind of curious about what your takes were on the gospel reading last week that were
Oh,
similar.
now you make me remember stuff.
Sorry.
It was about bread of life. That was
Yeah.
it because we're doing 5 weeks of bread, and the bread's getting moldy. Uh, and so, because I just finished writing the one, because we're recording, so I have to give one tomorrow. Um,
Oh, so you
and
pre-record your live stream?
yeah, so it's not
Yeah.
a live stream. It's a
Yep.
pre-recorded, and we
Yep.
push it out. Although we are moving toward a live stream. I'm
Yeah.
learning all kinds of new things. So last week, what was it? It was, of course, now you asked me, I can't remember.
Well, here
What was
I've got it right here actually. So the
the,
reading
yeah?
once
What was
again. Are you looking for last week or this week? You're looking for last week.
no the last Sunday? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, the
So
one you want.
yeah,
It's
that
still bread
last
of
Sunday.
life.
Yeah, it's still bread of life, but it's basically right. The Pharisees are doubting him and being like, "How could this guy be from heaven? How could Jesus be from heaven? We know his mom and his dad." Um,
Right.
and then Jesus goes into the no one can come to me except those who the Father draws to
Oh,
him.
that was it. I remember.
Yeah.
Because I talked about that Jesus says, I'm the bread of life. You come to me and you'll never be hungry
Yeah.
and never be thirsty. And I said, that sounds awesome. But he also said, no one can come to me unless drawn by the Father. And later he says, no one can get to the Father except through me. And so it
Yeah.
sounds like roadblocks and barriers. And I said, that's not at all what the will of God is. The will of God is to draw all people to himself, to love,
Yeah.
to claim, to save, to love. And so that's what the message of God is. That's what. And so, yeah. And I think you talked about that same kind of thing. And
Yeah.
also that Jesus compared himself to manna, that came down and fed the Israelites' bellies for a while, but he
Yeah.
feeds us for all time.
Yeah, and he does that again. We kind of get, that's the thing about the reason why we get these like 5 weeks of John is because the dialogue as Jesus is explaining the feeding of the 5,000 is super long, right?
Right.
Um, and so, in order to kind of get it, we kind of get these 5 weeks together of this kind of reading. So, yeah, it's okay. It's super interesting. I kind of want to ask at this point, not kind of, I'm going to ask. Um, 15 years of doing
Mm-hmm.
faith formation ministry at Paulsville First and youth work, prior to, um, what, what are some of your takeaways? Yeah, what are some of the things that you think are ultimately really important or that you've kind of learned over the 20 plus years of ministry that you've been doing in Lutheran congregations? Um,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
And that's a great question because it really does come down to relationship.
yeah,
That we stay in relationship with Christ, with each other, with because our primary ministry is the people who live in our house, whoever that is, and
but
and then we take care of that relationship, and then we go outside from there to take care of other relationships.
mhm,
And I got to stay connected to my wife, my child, and and Christ in these things. And so we do what we can to stay in these relationships and to build them and to strengthen them. And again, goes back to my sabbatical.
yeah,
Is to That's what a lot of that was. Is how do we stay in relationship with each other, even though I'm on the West Coast and I got friends. Well, because actually part of that sabbatical is also go to Sweden to talk to other people that I'd met
right,
from at Luther 500 too.
right, right.
And
Because it was an international festival. We had people from all across the globe, and so I'm assuming
mhm.
you went to chat with Maria in
Yep,
Sweden. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and so okay, so here's then the where I want to shift this question. So the big takeaway of your years of ministry is that it's relationship, dummy.
Keep it, yeah,
Duh,
just
duh.
keep it simple. And
Right.
that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so now we're in a pandemic, and I have three screens in front of me,
yeah.
and everyone's trying to figure out how to do relationship well.
Yeah.
So, what does that look like for you in Paulsbo, Washington?
Yeah, it's learning all the screens, all the technologies. How do I stay connected to you
Yeah.
from my living room? And Zoom is my best friend and my worst enemy, um,
Yeah.
because it allows me to see your face and to see that lovely smile of yours
Yeah.
and to hear your voice. But I can't give you a hug, which I
Right.
couldn't, regardless of pandemic anyway, because you're in one of the Dakotas, and so.
The
But
warmer
it still
one.
allows us what
The warmer one.
the warmer one. So but yeah, so later tonight, actually, after this meeting, I've got our Bible and Brew, which is a Bible study that we have on a weekly basis. We read the scripture that's coming up, and we drink beer. Um, and we had been meeting in a brewery, and then COVID. Then we were meeting on Zoom. We're going back to a modified. So some of us are out a patio in somebody's backyard, but some are still zooming in, and so
Right.
that's a real challenge because the technology of the sound and stuff.
Hmm. Yep.
But because during that time we had people from Minnesota joining us,
Right.
and from out of town that could join us. So and it's yeah, it's what and also because of this, all we've learning how to live stream our worship, I can attend your worship, and have attended Jen's worship services and somebody else I met at Luther 500. So all these different things, I can go to church all day. My wife thinks I'm crazy, but
Well, and right. I mean, that's it. Like I hear from both my parents and my in-laws. Then they say like, oh yeah, we go to church twice. We go to Amy's church and we go to Joel's church.
right,
And they both kind of are on that. So there's a gift there, um,
hmm
that it's not replacing, right? Because you can't put your hands around, you can't hug the
right,
screen, or you can, but people will just think you're odd. But but at the same time, yeah, the gift is that we can think about relationship not forever in this model, but in a
right,
way, right, that is can at least nourish when we're in the wilderness, the COVID wilderness, right? That
right,
there can nourishment can happen. Um, and sometimes I do wonder if we're like if we're like Jonah, right? So like COVID, I hate screens, I hate masks, rah, 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 rah. And then God's like, oh, okay, step outside here. I'm gonna make this tree grow and shade. Oh, yep, yep. See, oh no, now I'm gonna bring a worm, and see there, I'm gonna sustain you. And God, and I think it's funny because God's like, I don't care if you like it. your your Whether you like it or not, that's a Facebook paradigm. That's not a godly paradigm.
right.
What you need to know is that I'm going to be with you. I'm going to sustain you.
Yes, yes,
Yeah, and I'm
yeah,
going to
and
allow, because ministry is relationship, I'm going to allow relationships to 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 bloom and to still flourish even in
right,
this time of separation. Yeah.
right. And then we get back to the bread.
Yeah. So what does communion look like in your community right now? This is
Well,
kind of
we
a
are
hot, yeah,
well,
hot
we are.
topic.
I mean, right, because we are all online.
Right.
So the pastors that do the words of institution, and then we commune at home,
Yeah.
and we have since the beginning. I have actually a home altar set up, and so I'm the altar guild in the morning. And I set it up to a little portable with candles and a cross, and so we have wine and grape juice or or not wine and grape juice, but wine and crackers, and I had whiskey one morning because I didn't have any wine. But so that's what communion looks like.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've been thinking about Amber, our Sunday school director, superintendent. We've been talking about kind of we have probably maybe this is true in your congregation also, where there's certain milestones like the giving of a first Bible at a certain age
Mm-hmm.
and first communion and those kinds of things. We've been thinking about doing other milestones that might be kind of the akin to each year, kind of setting up a thing around um, that eventually would be for that child, like a little home table. So a
Mm-hmm.
stand for the Bible and a light source and a plate, and that uh, even even me, I have a younger sister, and so there was kind of playing at meals, when she
Right.
was, she's 4 years younger than me, and so that kind of like play is that relational thing. And so, how do
Mm-hmm.
we incorporate an aspect of church in that, right? It's interesting that you bring that up. It makes me remember I need to go back and talk to Amber, and we need to work on this, creating these milestone things. So, yeah,
Right. Yeah, and
really cool.
I know, communion is. I mean, for a while when this started, it was a hot topic in the
Right.
ELCAs. Can you have the sacrament without the pastor there doing the holy words and the magic spells? And it's like, yeah, and I don't want to offend anybody in your congregation, but
Too late.
it tells me that Christ can't work. Um, it's because it's Christ's work, it's God's work, it's
Right.
not ours, and so He does it. And it's not like the magic words are going through Zoom and through it's the body and blood of Christ that He gave us, and that we share in that,
Yeah.
regardless of where we are, who we are. It's His table, it's
Yep.
her table, and so God gives us this bread and this life, and to tell me that God can't work on the internet, when God, I think, created the internet. So, yeah, that,
Right.
so,
Well, so there you certainly like uh, I don't think you offended anyone here, or if you did, I'm sure I'll hear about it, and that's just fine.
you
Um,
can't be friends with him.
but but in the end, we we have lots of great theology about what we think is happening there, but in the end, it is God's table, and
Yes,
and where we put our that's where we put the eggs, is in God's basket.
right.
Um, that's where the fishes and loaves are. That's and so we are right to treat it as God's table,
Right.
and I think there's powerful there. There's that's a powerful kind of place to be. You're on solid ground, right? So, man, can you tell I could do this forever? Like,
Yeah,
this is great. Like, I know
every time you and I get on a Zoom chat, we end up for hours, and it's
I know.
awesome.
I know, right? And here's the thing, 20 years of being a traveling musician taught me a few things, and one of them is you probably should leave them wanting a little bit more. And so uh, I'm gonna kind of close out our time because we've been at 30 minutes, and that's kind of the tradition is that we go about 30 minutes here.
All
So
right.
everybody from Eastside Lutheran and folks who have been watching online, just thank you so much for joining us. Paul Davis from Paulsville First Lutheran, and we have a tradition, Paul. Well, I see there's a few more new comments. Let me just see if uh,
If anybody's calling me a heretic, which wouldn't be the first time, by the way. So,
no, Carol says, always good to meet new people. Thanks. And Judy says, even snowbirds can stay in touch with the home church. So
exactly.
they're feeling you, man. They like what you're saying. So we have a tradition for Together in Faith that we end with Luther's evening prayer, and and so we're going to do that now, and then I'll sign off. And Paul, you and I can stay on and talk for the next 90 minutes and make people jealous and envious of what it is we are saying next. So,
That's right.
friends, I think that this won't be the last time that you get to hear Paul on Together in Faith. But let's go ahead and close out our time now with Luther's evening prayer. I give thanks to you, my
You,
Heavenly
my
Father,
heavenly Father,
through Jesus Christ, your dear Son, that you have graciously protected me today, and I ask you to forgive me all my sins, for I have done wrong, and graciously to protect me tonight. For into your hands I commend myself, my body, my soul, and all that is mine. Let your holy angel be with me, so that the wicked foe may have no power over me. Amen. Well, Paul, it was really good to be with you. Everyone else,
and
it was
and
great.
also with you.
Yeah, thanks.
Lovely to
Uh,
meet all of you from over the east side. Maybe I'll
yeah.
come visit someday and you get to see me in person.
Yeah, and
I'll
now
get to see you in
Eastsiders,
person.
you have a friend in the greater Seattle area. So if you're ever out there and you need a recommendation for, the best this or the best that, where to get a good meal, where to stay out on the Kitsap Peninsula, um, you can always reach out to Paul over at Paulsbo's First Lutheran Church. All right.
There you
Well,
go.